Outstanding effort again.
We're busting ours to kick yours.
That's big time.
-15.
Respect all, fear none.
Oh, did he belt that one?
Intensity is not a perfume.
It was a no-doubter.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We are up in the bird's nest here at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. I'm Brendan Mortensen alongside Annie Claff, back with you sooner than expected. We told you to stay locked in to our MASN Orioles pages if there was any news, and boy is there news. We've got a big podcast today, Annie.
Yeah, this is an exciting one. This might be the most exciting podcast in the 2025 calendar year.
I think it is. We're talking Pete Alonso today. Comes to Baltimore on a 5-year deal. There were reports of the Orioles going after a big bat. Kyle Schwarber ends up going back to Philly. There were some rumors swirling that the Orioles were connected to him, and they end up with Pete Alonso, who is younger, has been probably the more consistent hitter over the last 5-7 years. You can make a case this was the best pure hitter on the free agent market. Of course, there are guys like Kyle Tucker and Cody Bellinger who have some more well-rounded games, but if you're looking for power, if you're looking for home runs, RBIs, scoring run potential, Pete Alonso's the guy.
I mean, I think my first thoughts were that this is just a big statement. Like from Mike Elias, from the Orioles, from whoever in the front office, this is kind of just the statement that they needed to make. I mean, we went into this offseason saying this is Elias and Co.'s most critical offseason of all in his tenure with the Orioles. So to make a move like this, it really says something, even when you go out and match an offer for Kyle Schwarber, when you go out and make a trade for Taylor Ward in exchange for Grayson Rodriguez, and still say that you're looking for an impact hitter just so you can better the lineup, regardless of positional value, just so that you can say, listen, we are doing everything we can, no matter if it's a multi-year contract, no matter how much money in free agency, we are doing everything we can to make sure we make it back to the playoffs in 2026. And if urgency was ever a thing, the Orioles are certainly exhibiting it right now.
There's a window that exists in Baltimore, and it exists because you have a young core that includes guys like Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westberg and Adley Rutschman and Jackson Holliday and Colton Cowser and other guys, right?
Right.
The Orioles are very aware of that, and making a move like this shows their awareness of that. There have been plenty of good moves that the Orioles have made this offseason. We talked at length about how Taylor Ward helps this team. He factors into the conversation today as well with just the amount of power that the Orioles have added this offseason. We talked about the Ryan Helsley deal a lot, why that made a lot of sense for Baltimore if you can find his 2024 version where he led all of baseball in saves. That was a move that made a lot of sense. Those are really good moves. And then there's a tier above that where there is a Pete Alonso move. This is a guy who has been an all-star in 4 straight seasons. We're going to dive into the numbers here as we talk more about who Alonso is as a player. But, yeah, just in general, I mean, the first takeaway is just, oh, my God. I mean, that's Pete Alonso, right? That when I'm starting my notes for this podcast, it is Pete, word I can't say on a podcast, Alonso. Like, that's the kind of guy that you are bringing into this team. And that is obviously nothing against Taylor Ward or Ryan Helsley or anybody that the Orioles have brought in this offseason. Those are quality moves that are going to help this baseball team. But Pete Alonso is Pete Alonso.
Right.
And with this, you inherently understand the fact that the Orioles were competing against other teams for Pete Alonso's services. I mean, there were plenty of rumors about the Mets' interest in Alonso or lack thereof as it kind of got down the stretch. The Red Sox were a rumored potential suitor for Alonso as well. So you're competing with the big boys when you are trying to lure Pete Alonso to your baseball team. And, whenever we hear from Alonso, we will hear part of the reasoning and rationale that went into this deal outside of the contract itself being right. You would have to imagine that joining a really young core and probably hitting behind somebody like Gunnar Henderson had something to do with it as well. But you're competing with a lot of teams when you are talking about bringing in Pete Alonso, and it's a nice feeling for the Orioles to come out on top in
Right.
those discussions.
And it's huge for moving forward, too, in free agent markets for years to come. You can say that, listen, we signed Pete Alonso for a multi-year contract and an exorbitant amount of money, and you can also do the same for future free agents because it was always known that to get players to come to Baltimore is a little bit different than getting players to go to New York or LA or whatever, you name it. So to make a statement like this and say, like, we can play with the big level clubs, or at least the clubhouses that have much higher payrolls than the Orioles, it's like, okay, this is now a step in the direction of we're right up there in that conversation for top free agents year in, year out now.
It sends a message to everyone. It sends a message to the rest of the league that the Orioles are not messing around. And I think importantly as well, it sends a message to the guys in your own clubhouse.
Yeah.
This is a clubhouse full of homegrown players, right? The Adley Rutschmans, the Gunnar Hendersons, Jordan West. I've named all those guys.
Literally the only one in this lineup right now that wouldn't be is Taylor Ward.
Yeah.
And obviously
Taylor Ward, Tyler O'Neill, guys like that
Yeah.
you have acquired. But the core of this team is built around the homegrown guys. And I think it does say something to bring in a Pete Alonso and show those guys, like, we're not messing around in Baltimore.
Right.
This is what we're doing. We're going for it. You guys have developed. You have gotten us to the point where we can go out and it makes sense to bring in a Pete Alonso because there is a window of winning here. Of course, I know there are a lot of discussions about the potential pitching moves that the Orioles still need to make. All of the buzz around the Orioles is that they are not done. Mike Elias said it as well. We talked about it on our last podcast, that they felt like they had the ability to make a big splash on the hitter market and a big splash on the pitching market. They certainly made a big splash on the hitting market here. It sends a message to everybody that this is where the Orioles are at right now. They're going for it. This is a chips in kind of move.
Right, and what I also like when you put it in the perspective of the rest of the clubhouse is you have guys like Gunnar Henderson, like the Adley Rutschmans, like you said, who have been having so much pressure on themselves to lead this offense, to lead this team, be the leaders. You just brought in two guys who add in the most service time in this entire lineup, also including Tyler O'Neill, who have been that veteran experience, who have that veteran leadership role, also have been to the playoffs, also who have been to the All-Stars 5 times. Pete Alonso is a 5-time All-Star, a Rookie of the Year in 2019 as well. So you added a guy who can relieve a little bit of that pressure off of Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, maybe into Jackson Holiday. And those guys can just play ball now, just as they have been, at least in 2023 and 2024, because 2025 was an off season. There's no doubt about that. This is the year in 2026 that you can kind of get back to just having fun with it, especially with someone as fun to watch and play with as Pete Alonso.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about what the lineup looks like with Pete Alonso in it, but I think one of the biggest takeaways is going to be that other guys' numbers are going to get better. Gunnar Henderson, I think, is maybe the biggest beneficiary of a move like this, where if Gunnar Henderson is batting second and Pete Alonso is batting third in your lineup, you have just protected Gunnar Henderson at the 2 spot in your lineup with one of the best power-hitting right-handers that the game has to offer. So let's talk about Pete Alonso, who he is as a player. It
makes me smile, like, talking about it.
It's fun.
Like
We're talking about Pete Alonso joining this baseball
Right.
team, and it's also fun what he brings, and that is tanks. He has hit 34 home runs, at least 34, in every full season since he debuted in 2019. A 2019 season, by the way, when in his rookie year, he led all of baseball in home runs with 53. Over the last 5 seasons, he has averaged 39 home runs and 111 runs driven in with an 842 OPS. Last year, it was 38 tanks. He also led the National League with 41 doubles.
Yeah.
A 272 batting average, and an 871 OPS. We mentioned the addition of Taylor Ward as well. Combine him with Taylor Ward, you have now added 74 home runs from last year to your lineup.
Unreal.
When the guy who led your team in home runs last year, there were 3 players for the Orioles, they had 17.
Right.
You have added guys that hit 38 and 36 home runs respectively.
Not only the power hitting duo between Taylor Ward and Pete Alonso, but also just posting every single day. Pete Alonso has averaged 144 games played in his total 7 seasons, which is insane. Taylor Ward has averaged just over 136 games in his last 4 seasons. You're adding that to a lineup of guys who could barely play or make it over 100 games. Gunnar Henderson and Jackson Holiday were the only two that did that in 2025. That is huge to have that kind of consistency and durability. It kind of makes you feel like you're getting another Cal Ripken Jr. coming into this Orioles lineup.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Alonso does have 2 straight seasons of playing 162. He'd need a few more seasons of 162 to match Cal's record. But yeah, he hasn't played fewer than 152 games in any full season in his career. And as you mentioned, there were just 2 Orioles that even played over 100 games last year. That consistency is huge because when you talk about what the Orioles lineup did last year, yes, there was underperformance. Yes, there was a decrease in the power numbers that we saw from the 2024 season. But so much of that had to do with injuries. So much of that had to do with just constructing a different lineup. It felt like almost every day. And with Pete Alonso and Taylor Ward as well, those are 2 guys that are going to be in your lineup pretty much every day. Pete Alonso, quite literally, each of the last 2 seasons, played every single day. Having that stability in the middle of the lineup, I don't think you can understate how important that is, both in general and for this Orioles team specifically, given how much they struggled with that last year.
Right, and especially when it's coming from someone that has such an impactful presence in Pete Alonso. Like, it's one thing to have a guy who's still kind of making his name for himself, who's posting every single day. Yes, there's, of course, some value in that, but when it's coming from Pete Alonso, who is being implemented into this lineup, into this clubhouse, who has played every single day with the track record and historical numbers that he's put up in his career, that is really something to say to the young core of this organization of, hey, you can be so darn good and also post every single day. Mm-hmm. And it goes hand in hand. Like, the numbers don't come if you aren't playing every single day. And obviously you can't really control that in terms of injuries, but to have someone who has that veteran leadership that's now added into this Orioles lineup, but also is just a complete role model for posting every single day is going to be huge.
And with a longer-term contract like this, obviously Pete Alonso enters the free agent market not later in his career, but once you're entering the free agent market, you are inherently later in your career. He'll be entering his 8th season in his age 31 season, but there's a lot of reason to believe that he is going to have sustained success throughout his career. Yes, he is a power hitter, but he also put up the 16th best batting average in the National League last year. Yes, with the power numbers also comes, a decent amount of strikeouts, but his strikeout rate was just slightly below league average last year. It wasn't like he was striking out 35% of the time. Right. It was a strikeout rate just over 26%.
And it also went down by almost 2% from his 2024 season, so there's progress there.
85th percentile or better in expected WOBA, expected batting average, expected slugging percentage, average exit velocity, barrel rate, hard hit rate, launch angle sweet spot rate, and bat speed last year, according to StatCast. The underlying metrics, yes, they don't show up in the stat sheet, but they are something that can indicate to you that this is not a fluke. This has staying power, which obviously it does. He's been an all-star for 4 consecutive seasons. As mentioned, he has hit at least 34 homers every full season that he has played since he entered the league in 2019. So that's only excluding the shortened 2020. He has been consistently one of the best power hitters in baseball for the last 7 years. There's really no reason to believe that that is going to stop anytime soon. I know there's some questions about the left field wall at Camden Yards as well. According to StatCast, if you were looking at the ballpark factors, Alonso hit 38 homers last year. If there were a magical world in which he played every single one of his games at Oriole Park at Camden Yards, StatCast projected him at 45 home runs. So the left field wall, not really an issue for Polar Bear.
Yeah, not an issue at all. And also when you look at his spray chart too, he plays to all fields. It's not just that he's going to pull the ball. He actually has he's actually played the ball to down the middle, to right field, you name it. So I don't really think that is a concern. You also brought up that striking out, and I think that it's important to note that that's kind of the same conversation that you're going to have with a lot of power hitters. Right. Sure, they're striking out. Same with Aaron Judge. You have that conversation with someone like that who actually struck out a little bit more than Pete Alonso in 2025. But because of the numbers and the power and the damage that's made when you actually make contact, you kind of overlook the fact that they're striking out. I don't want to be extremely premature when I say this, which I will be, but
I'm not going to say I don't care, but I don't care.
right, exactly.
It's not an absurd strikeout rate. As mentioned, it is slightly below league average. He's giving you at least 35 tanks and 100 runs driven in. I don't care if it's 160 strikeouts in 162 games.
And I'm going to sound extremely premature when I say this, and sure, whatever, but Samuel Basallo, I have the same kind of notion with him where you have the concerns with the striking out, but once he gets to that level where he consistently causes damage when he makes contact, then you're going to have the same kind of conversation with any kind of power hitter where the numbers are numbers. The results are results.
Yeah, and obviously that's dreaming on Samuel Basallo's potential, but there is also something to be said for bringing a hitter like Pete Alonso in. I think Taylor Ward falls under this category as well, maybe not to the same extent with the success that Alonso has had, but you're bringing in a veteran hitter that just knows how to do it to a lineup and a clubhouse that needed another veteran presence and needed a guy that just knows how to go out there every day, hit home runs. You can't quantify what kind of impact that has on a young lineup, but it is certainly going to have one. And as you mentioned, Pete Alonso is not super pull happy in the air. He actually had a 25% opposite air percentage last year compared to 19% pulling the ball in the air last year. Reminds me a little bit of a Jordan Westburg type where, Alonso pulls the ball more than Westburg does, but Westburg goes, to center field and right field more frequently than he does to left field. Alonso, a little bit of the same way. So he is not just a pure pull power hitter.
And something that's also increased for him in his career. I mean, 2025 was an insane season, especially after what we've seen from Alonso, but that opposite air percentage rate went up since this was his career high for opposite air rate.
Yeah, he's learning how to use all fields better as he progresses in his career. The other thing I want to mention with him too is that once you dive into his splits, he fills in some really important gaps for the Orioles. They needed to get more right-handed and they needed to bring in more power, and that's exactly what they did. Against lefties in his career, Alonso has an .835 OPS with 75 home runs. I think the Orioles' struggles against left-handed pitchers last year were incredibly well documented. They ended the season with a .661 OPS against lefties. When Alonso's team is trailing, he has an .851 OPS in his career. The 2025 Orioles had a .656 OPS. And finally, with runners in scoring position, Alonso
my favorite one.
Has a .933 OPS in his career with 440 runs driven in. And the 2025 Orioles had a .716 OPS with runners in scoring position. So not only does he fill the gaps in the very obvious way that he is a middle-of-the-order hitter that is going to hit a lot of home runs, but he is good against lefties, which the Orioles struggled with last year, and he is really good when runners are in scoring position. He's good when the team is behind as well. Those are all places where the Orioles struggled last year. And
paired with Taylor Ward, too, because he also filled those needs. Taylor Ward had a career .809 or has a career .809 OPS with runners in scoring position and then an .824 career OPS against lefties. So you're bringing in two guys who, Pete Alonso, of course, like you mentioned, is going to be a whole nother tier of excitement when it comes to a signing, but when you implement these two people into an Orioles lineup, you infinitely get better than you already were.
Since he entered the league in 2019, Pete Alonso leads all of baseball in runs driven in and in games played, and he is third in home runs behind only Aaron Judge and Kyle Schwarber. It's a really, really good player.
It's a really good group of people at the top.
Yeah, it's a really, really good player. So I think what is interesting with this deal, too, we've talked about it in terms of the position players, right? When we talked about Taylor Ward, we said, and I think I said this almost verbatim on the last podcast too, when Taylor Ward was brought in, it was evident that the Orioles had a need in the outfield. Whether that was a starting outfielder or a fourth outfielder type was up for debate, but they had a need in the outfield. You struggled with injuries a ton out there last year. You lost Cedric Mullins. You lost Ryan O'Hearn as options. You needed somebody else to come in and be a solid outfield option. And then in Taylor Ward, you bring in an everyday player, which was maybe almost more than we were anticipating that they would do in the outfield, but you get a starting caliber guy to pair with Colton Cowser and Tyler O'Neill and Dylan Beavers and Leody Taveras, who you also brought in this offseason as well. And then once you looked around the diamond, there wasn't an apparent need at a position. but you still needed things, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. You didn't really need a position, but you needed power, which Pete Alonso obviously brings. You needed stability, which Pete Alonso obviously brings. You needed a veteran presence. He checks all of those boxes.
Yeah.
There wasn't necessarily a position open where you said, man, we really need to check all of those boxes and we need to do it in this specific spot. But Pete Alonso is the type of player that if you can get him, you figure it out later.
Yeah.
And that's what the Orioles are going to do. There is now a logjam at first base, obviously. You thought going into the year there was a group of Ryan Mountcastle, Kobe Mayo, and Samuel Basallo at first base, and I think you felt good about that group.
Yeah.
The upside of Kobe Mayo and Samuel Basallo, obviously, and then Ryan Mountcastle hopefully having a healthy season and getting back to the kind of power numbers that we know he is capable of. You felt good about that first base group. You obviously feel a lot better about it right now, but there are question marks as to how that logjam gets freed up.
Right, and a log jam is a good problem to have, especially when you look at the 2024 season, the 2025 season that had so many injuries. Having an abundance of options at first base or whatever position is a good sign and a good problem to have. And believe me when I say that I think Kobe Mayo has all the potential in the world to become a great big leaguer, especially at first base. I mean, we saw the progress all throughout the season, and with his September offensive numbers were incredible. That's something you wanted a player like Kobe Mayo to end the season with so that you can have a lot of potential for the whole of 2026. But believe me when I say that, however, you add Pete Alonso to the group and you have someone that can provide immediate success.
Yeah.
With Kobe Mayo, you feel really good with how he ended 2025, but he's still a young player, still trying to find his feet in the dirt at first base. But with Pete Alonso, he gives you an insane opportunity for a win now, make it to the playoffs in 2026. Not that Kobe Mayo doesn't, but it's just a whole different ballgame.
No, we both think very highly of Kobe Mayo. He is a great dude and has the potential to be a really, really good baseball player. If Kobe Mayo turns into the kind of first baseman that Pete Alonso currently is, you would be beyond thrilled.
Yeah.
And you had the chance to go get the baseball player that Pete Alonso currently is by bringing in Pete Alonso. So you just make that move.
Right.
And then you figure things out later. Pete Alonso was brought in for the bat. Not a great defender, and he is not a great base runner. Ryan Mountcastle is a really, really good defender. It would not shock me if the Orioles view Ryan Mountcastle as somebody who is maybe their designated hitter, or excuse me, is maybe their first baseman against left-handed pitching, which gives Pete Alonso the opportunity to DH because Ryan Mountcastle is a very good defensive first baseman and has mashed lefties in his career. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Orioles are thinking of a plan like that. As for the future of Mountie and Mayo, we don't want to speculate on what exactly that might look like. There are plenty of rumors about the Orioles being potentially involved in the trade market for a starting pitching option. If you are looking at places where there are currently log jams after this move, then maybe you see some potential places where the Orioles could make moves from. I think there are obvious dots to connect. If you want to connect those dots, we are not going to speculate on any specific trades or anything like that. But the Orioles have plenty of guys at the first base position that have value, and what they end up doing with that value, whether they keep it in-house or go find value somewhere else, remains to be seen. But bottom line, let's talk about the lineup, because this lineup is now ridiculous.
Yeah.
We're going to count Pete Alonso as the everyday first baseman because that's what he's been for the last 7 years of his career at catcher. You have the 1-2 punch of Adley Rutschman and Samuel Basallo. Second base, third base, shortstop, lockdown. Jackson Holliday, Jordan Westberg, Gunnar Henderson. In the outfield, you bring in an everyday player in Taylor Ward. And then you've got Colton Cowser, Dylan Beavers, Tyler O'Neill out there, Jeremiah Jackson in the mix as well, but you would think of him as more of a bench utility type of infield, outfield hybrid, whatever the plan looks like for him in 2026. Leody Taveras, you also brought in as another outfielder as well. And then, Mountcastle, Mayo, whatever ends up happening there, they are certainly in the discussion as of this point. But if you're talking about 1 through 9, I don't know what your projected lineup might look like. But for me, I am daydreaming about a lineup that looks like Jordan Westberg, Gunnar Henderson, Pete Alonso, Taylor Ward, Adley Rutschman, Samuel Basayo, Tyler O'Neill, Colton Cowser, Jackson Holiday.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That feels pretty good to me, 1 through 9.
Right. I mean, I would even throw Dylan Beavers in there.
Yeah,
too,
Dylan Beavers in that discussion as well, I think.
I don't even care what the order is at this point in time.
Yeah.
Just having those guys 1 through 9, regardless of the order, makes you feel really good about this offense getting back on track, because that's all what this offseason was about. Sure, there was the starting pitching needs and the relief pitching needs, but you needed to get the offense back on track to what we saw in 2024 when they made the playoffs, 2023 when they made the playoffs. That was arguably, I mean, we had the areas of need for the offseason. Number 1, of course, was starting pitching. Number 2 was getting a closer. And then number 3, we even had an impact hitter ranked as like our number 3 need for the Orioles this offseason. In my notes, I have impact hitters, ? Because I didn't even think that they would go out and get an insane duo in Taylor Ward and Pete Alonso. But when you look back now and see what difference it could make to have those 2 guys and how amazing these offseason moves have been for just the offense, it's like, okay, you really do have an insane chance to get this offense back on track now.
I don't think it's crazy to think that this team could lead all of baseball in home runs next year after these 2 additions.
That could be
How many guys on the team legitimately have the potential to hit 30-plus home runs? 5? Alonso, Ward, I think you put Gunnar in that conversation, obviously, because he's done it before. Cowser, Westberg.
If O'Neill is healthy, I think
O'Neill,
you can put
if
him
he's
in
healthy.
There.
Like Basayo, if he gets the number of games. We
That'd
know
be
he has
so
the power
cool.
potential, but like that's 7 dudes that have the potential to hit 30-plus home runs. I'm not saying they're all going to do it.
That could be our early mid-December hot take for 2026.
I don't think it's insane. This team had 191 home runs last year, and the guy leading the team, again, it was 3 of them. Jackson Holiday, Gunnar Henderson, and Jordan Westberg each hit 17. I don't think it's crazy to say that they could have at least 2 guys with 30-plus homers.
Yeah, I don't either.
And at least 3 with 20-plus.
That's the hope. That is the hope for 2026.
Pete Alonso adds a lot to this Baltimore Orioles lineup. I think this is pretty obviously the most exciting free agent acquisition that has been made in the Michael Elias era since 2019. It is the biggest contract that has been handed out. It's an exciting offseason. I mean, a new manager comes in, you bring in Pete Alonso, Taylor Ward, Ryan Helsley. There are still moves to be made, and yes, I know a lot of fans are saying there still needs to be starting pitching moves. Was hitting even the priority going into this offseason? Was it starting pitching? This does not mean that the Orioles are done. From everything that we have heard, this does not keep the Orioles out of the starting pitching market. Mike Elias has said that himself, that they felt like they had the ability to make a big splash on the hitter side of things and a big splash on the pitching side of things. Obviously, the starting pitching is the place that the Orioles will focus from here on out. They have made additions to the bullpen, 2 really good ones in Ryan Helsley and Andrew Kittredge. They have made 2 really good additions on the position player side with Pete Alonso and with Taylor Ward. We'll see what ends up happening on the starting pitching side of things. Is it entirely on the free agent market? Are there trades potentially to come? We will see. But for right now, this is a really exciting time in Birdland. You just got one of the best hitters in baseball.
Yeah, and I like the fact that almost every single area of need on the offseason agenda is checked off except for starting pitching.
It's a big one to not be checked off, but
it's a big one, right. But you have been pretty aggressive and active early into the offseason, which I like, so that you can kind of formulate what you're going to look like in the 2026 season early on. And so I like how that they have been aggressive. It seems like it's a new identity in Baltimore with this front office and ownership group. And so, yes, there is still a big question mark around starting pitching, but you still, regardless, feel a lot better going into 2026 than you were when the season ended.
Yeah, and you're keeping up with the Joneses a little bit too, right?
Yeah.
If anything, you're getting ahead of the Joneses right now. The Toronto Blue Jays have made some big moves, especially on the starting pitching front, but we haven't seen the Yankees do all that much. We haven't seen the Red Sox do all that much. The Rays have made some smaller moves, including old friend Cedric Mullins, that we wish nothing but the best for in Tampa Bay. But you're kind of getting ahead of the Joneses a
Yeah.
little bit. The Yankees and Red Sox, who haven't made many moves yet, like, you got to be looking at the Orioles and what they have done so far.
I think
You got to keep up with the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah,
at
this
this point.
division is going to be a
It's a
fun one to
bloodbath.
watch.
It
this
is a
year.
bloodbath every single year. And it just got harder because
Yeah.
the Orioles have one of the best power hitters in baseball on their team. But I think that'll just about do it for this special edition of the Bird's Nest. We are excited to hear from Pete Alonso whenever he is introduced in Baltimore here at some point soon. But this is a very exciting time. And hopefully there are more exciting times to come as well when we are talking about some more moves that the Orioles could potentially be making this offseason. Thank you so much for following along with us live on Facebook and YouTube for this special edition of the show. If you didn't catch us live, you can catch us after the fact on Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us here on The Bird's Nest. Big thank you to Amy Jennings behind the scenes for producing this one. For Annie Claff, I am Brendan Mortensen, and we'll catch you next time.